Forward to the class. And here we go. I have a Savior, I better go to that land where I'm found. I have a Savior. I have a Savior. I have a Savior. All right, all right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And we're at record.
Good evening.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely recording. Hi there. Okay. All right. Here we go. So, welcome to the Healing Chronicles. Looks like my slides are out of order. Okay, so Ron, I'm going to go ahead and let you say hello to the people.
Hello, welcome. I'm your co-host. So great meeting everyone. I'm a independent freelance producer here in Washington, D.C., originally from LA, and we're excited that you are joining us this evening. Healing Chronicles has been with us for some time now, and we do a monthly. We took a few weeks off in March, right? And we are back now.
I think so. I can't remember yesterday, Rhonda.
I know it's all a blur. But this week we are so grateful and thankful for all of our guests and our great audience. We also have Monda's Instagram account, and I will go ahead and post that in the chat later on this evening. If you'd like to chat and something sparks your interest, we feel free to do your posts in the chat, and I will go ahead and inform Monda so we can all converse together. And Monda will give you a little more details on our program. The reaction button is to the far right. I believe there's a raise hand. If you feel like you're feeling that thought, go ahead and give us a love. There's a heart button. Use those emojis, and we'll know that we can continue on.
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. Appreciate you. And yes, as Rhonda said, we are very intimate. We're like family here. So those of you who are new, understand it really is like a family dynamic. Sometimes we don't agree with family, but it doesn't mean that we stop loving them. So tonight, we're going to talk about the power and the danger of images. And we're going to talk about the white doll test and why our kids are still picking a white doll. We're going to juxtapose that uh, to discuss how those dolls are like people and how disparaging treatment of black and brown people all over the world continues to be perpetuated because of the lack of positive images and the pervasiveness of white images. So we have some very special guests. They're going to speak to ways to show how they are helping our country and our nation heal through their. So what we generally do, I want to dedicate this discussion to our Asian brothers and sisters. They have had it rough in the past year, and the Asian American Pacific Islander, the Policy and Planning Council reports that between March 19th, this is, I got to put on the glasses for this one, between March 19th and December 31st of 2020, there were over 2,800 reports of anti-Asian discrimination. A lot of these reports, and I mean in New York, discrimination and attacks on Asians went up like a ridiculous, egregious amount, and those is just not okay. So no matter what skin you're in, as Angela Davis says, it's not enough to be non-racist. You have to become anti-racist. So this is for them, and I wanted to play for you a Tyler Perry speech. I don't know if you all saw the Oscars this past Sunday, but he gave a really, really good speech on hate. So I'm going to stop here and pull it up. Okay. All righty.
To the Board of Governors, especially to Whoopi Goldberg, Ava. You know, when I set out to help someone, it is my intention to do just that. I'm not trying to do anything other than meet somebody at their humanity. Like, case in point, this one time, I remember maybe it was about 17 years ago, I rented this building and we were using it for production. And I was walking to my car one day and I see this woman coming up out of the corner of my eye and I say, she's homeless, let me give her some money. Judgment. I wish I had time to talk about judgment. Anyway, I reach in my pocket and I'm about to give her the money. She says, "Excuse me, sir, do you have any shoes?" It stopped me cold because I remember being homeless and having one pair of shoes and they were bent over at the heels. So I was like, yeah. So I took her into the studio. She was hesitant to go in, but we went in, we go to wardrobe and there are all these boxes and everything around the walls and fabrics and racks of clothes. So we ended up having to stand in the middle of the floor. So as we're standing there, wardrobe, we find some shoes, we help her put them on. I stand up, I'm waiting for her to look up. And all this time she's looking down. She finally looks up, she's got tears in her eyes. She said, "Thank you, Jesus. My feet are off the ground." In that moment, I recall her saying to me, "I thought you would hate me for asking." I'm like, how can I hate you when I used to be you? How can I hate you when I had a mother who grew up in a Jim Crow South in Louisiana, rural Louisiana, right across the border from Mississippi, who at 9 or 10 years old was grieving the death of Emmett Till. As she got a little bit older, she was grieving the death of the civil rights boys and the little girls who were in the bombing in Alabama. She grieved all these years. And I remember being a little boy and coming home, and she was at home, like, "What are you doing at home? You're supposed to be at work." She was in tears that day. She said, there was a bomb threat, and she couldn't believe that someone wanted to blow up this place where she worked, where she took care of all these toddlers. It was the Jewish Community Center. My mother taught me to refuse hate. She taught me to refuse blanket judgment. And in this time, and with all of the internet and social media and algorithms and everything that wants us to think a certain way, the 24-hour news cycle, it is my hope that all of us would teach our kids, and not only to remember, just refuse hate. Don't hate anybody. I refuse to hate someone because they are Mexican or because they are black or white or LBGTQ. I refuse to hate someone because they are a police officer. I refuse to hate someone because they are Asian. I would hope that we would refuse hate. And I want to take this Jean Hersel Humanitarian Award and dedicate it to anyone who wants to stand in the middle, no matter what's around the walls. Stand in the middle, because that's where healing happens. That's where conversation happens. That's where change happens. It happens in the middle. So anyone who wants to meet me in the middle, to refuse hate, to refuse blanket judgment, and to help lift someone's feet off the ground, this one is for you too. God bless you, and thank you, Academy. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So all of you on the line, give yourself a round of applause for meeting Tyler in the middle and
Yeah.
doing what you need to do to stop hate. Yeah, the fact that someone would actually judge me based on the color of my skin, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so for those of you who may not know, whenever we do a healing chronicle, we believe in looking at the history of a thing and then talking about where we are in the present, and then discussing ways to heal and move forward and change behaviors in the future, so that we can all get along. And we use this. We use the Sankofa, which is an Akan proverb, meaning it's not an abomination to go to your roots and take what you forgot. So if you look at a Sankofa bird, generally his it's a picture of a duck, the symbol of a duck, or a bird with his beak to the back and his feet to the front. And so he's going to the back to learn those lessons so that he can move forward. And as a culture, and sometimes they have an egg in their beak, which primarily indicates the future and those that have yet to be born. So as we talk about the power of images, we're going to go back a little bit, and then we'll bring you to the present. This hatred of dark skin didn't just come from anywhere. And I wanted to share with you what white kids were learning in school in 1869. There was a book written, and I'm just going to say ninja. So as opposed to the N word, I'll just say ninja. 10 Little Ninja Boys by Frank Green, and I'm going to share it with you. And this is so kids could learn how to count. 10 little ninja boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little ninja boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. 8 little ninja boys traveling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7. 7 little ninja boys chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in half, and then there were 6. 6 little ninja boys playing with a hive. A bumblebee stung one, and then there were 5. 5 little ninja boys going in for law. One got in chancery, and then there were 4. 4 little ninja boys going out to sea. A red herring swallowed one, and then there were 3. 3 little ninja boys walking in the zoo. A big bear hugged one, and then there were 2. 2 little ninja boys sitting in the sun. One got frizzled up, and then there was 1. 1 little ninja boy living all alone. He got married, and then there were none. So, and that's just, that's not even scratching the surface of, life, at least here in the States, after slavery, during slavery, after slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, so on and so forth. And many planters and landowners felt that it was their divine right to own slaves. So one of the historical things that I wanted to talk about today, and this is primarily the topic of our conversation, is the doll test that was conducted by Doctors Kenneth and his wife, Kenneth and Mamie Phipps Clark. And I wanted to share this quote by Bell Hooks, who says, "In the world before racial integration, there was a constant struggle on the part of Black folks to create a counter-hegemonic world of images that would stand as visual resistance, challenging racist images. All colonized and subjugated people who, by way of resistance, create an oppositional subculture with the framework of domination, recognize that the field of representation, which is how we see ourselves and how others see us, is a site of ongoing struggle." So with this test, the doll test, and I'm going to share some video with you soon, which was done in the 40s. With the 1954 Supreme Court, a ruling of Brown versus Board of Education showed how the perception of Black children could be detrimental to learning, and that separate but equal was no longer constitutional, which was the law was passed in 1896 with Plessy versus Ferguson. The study was conducted to see whether African American children were psychologically and emotionally damaged by attending a segregated school. Show you a clip.
Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because she's white and she has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like me.
Yeah, which one looks like?
And that one.
Okay.
That doll.
Why is she the bad child?
Because she's black.
And why is he the ugly child?
Because he looks like he's white.
Why is he the dumb child?
Because he has dark brown skin.
Why is she the bad child?
Because she makes fun of everybody else's skin color.
Show me the child who has the skin color most adults like. And show me the child who has a skin color most adults don't like. Child.
Dumb child.
Okay, why is she the dumb child?
Because she has black skin.
Show me the mean child. Why is he the mean child?
Because she's brown.
Show me the bad child. Why is he the bad child?
Because he's black.
Okay. Show me the ugly child. Why is he the ugly child?
Because he's brown, black.
¿Cuál es bonito? ¿Cuál muñeco es feo? ¿Cuál muñeco es malo?
Ninguno.
¿Cuál muñeco es malo?
Este.
¿Y por qué?
Porque, bueno, este es moreno y este es blanco.
¿Cuál muñeco es feo? ¿Por qué?
Porque a mí no me gusta el color café.
¿Cuál muñeco te gusta más?
Este.
¿Cuál muñeco es bueno?
Este.
¿Y por qué?
Porque no me dan miedo los perros porque tengo más confianza con si los un poco más así como este. No tengo mucha confianza.
¿Cuál muñeco es malo? ¿Por qué?
No sé.
¿Cuál muñeco es feo?
Este. No sé, es que me parece que está un poquito, ¿cómo te diría? Más moreno y no se ve tan blanco. Y no tiene mucho aspecto.
And can you show me the doll that looks bad? Okay. And can you and why does that look bad?
Because it's black.
And why do you think that's a nice doll?
Because she's white.
And can you give me the doll that looks like you?
Okay. Pretty powerful. And let me show. This is in Italy.
This oceanside Verbo is about to become the backdrop for an unforgettable vacation memory. One of the rare moments.
Okay. It's just going to show how pervasive this color thing is all over the world. And the test we just showed, of course, that wasn't from 1940s. They had recreated it. I believe that was from 2009. Again, this is
¿Cuál bambola
Italy.
es bianca?
Can't see, Manda. We can only see the one screen.
Okay.
¿Cuál bambola es
nera. Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella bella?
Okay, hold on.
Qual è quella brutta?
Can you see it now?
E qual è quella
Are you
buona?
Yeah, we see it now.
okay? But you see that? Okay, I want to make sure it's the right one. Do you see the words, the alt test?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay.
Quale bambola è bianca? Quale bambola è nera?
Manda, you muted yourself. And so we can't hear the audio.
I did not think it has to do with the. Rhonda, did you mute me? Huh? You muted me? Okay, hold on. Let's try it again. All right.
Perché è buona?
Questa.
Nera.
Okay, can everyone see and hear?
Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella bella? Qual è quella brutta? E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona?
Lei.
Perché è buona?
Perché ha gli occhi celesti.
Quale è cattiva? Perché è cattiva?
Perché è tutto nero.
E qual è la bambola che ti somiglia di più? Quale bambola è nera?
Mi ha offeso.
Chi?
Tu.
Perché?
Perché mi hai chiamato nero.
Perché ti offendo?
Mi offendi perché altri bambini mi hanno offeso con cattiveria.
No, io non ho usato nessuna cattiveria.
Quello sto mi sta guardando.
Okay. All right. So everyone saw and heard. Yeah. You want to take a minute to talk about what you saw? How you felt?
I'll say something. Okay. Hello. Hi, Angela. It's disturbing, to be honest, because I just think about, the last question that's asked is which one is like you? and to think about the impact that has on children, and just to identify with what's bad, what's ugly, you know, and to somewhere along the way that's been taught, or, and I don't know, it's disturbing. It's a little disturbing to me. It's just so sad, that I'm kind of at a loss for words. I know about the doll test. I don't think I've ever seen it, but just have only heard about it. But just the fact that children of color are identifying with what's ugly, what's bad, and seeing that in each other. So that means when they're looking at another child of color, that's what they're thinking. And growing up with that, just the thought of growing up with that and having to come into the realization that it's not true, and to fight against all the prejudice, it's just sad. So I lost a little bit lost for words, but it's really just kind of hurtful to see that.
Well, thank you for sharing, Angela. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to talk just a little bit about before there were, and I'm going to call them good black dolls. There were toy makers did not, they didn't really create, I guess, ethnically correct dolls before 1969. And a lot of times black dolls were like, made from corn cobs or sticks or something like that, rag dolls, or they were made with white features. And then in a toy company, a black toy company, after I think it was the Watts riots, 65, 68, it took them 4 years to develop it, came up with a black doll called the Nancy doll. If you can see her in the corner. And that was in 1969. And Nancy had an afro, y'all. Like she had, ethnically correct features and an afro. So, and, believe it or not, I'm going to stop share for a minute. I was one in 1969, and this company, the Shandana Doll Company, the ones that made the Shandana, they came up with, after Nancy, the doll named Tamu. And when you pull Tamu's string, she would say, "Hi, my name's Tamu," and she would do any number of things. So I have Tamu right here. Yep, this is Tamu, and you can tell she's been through some things. She doesn't have her little string anymore, and I'm sure her box, she couldn't talk if she tried. Tamu is, she's been abused. I had her in college. I took her with me to college to Rhode Island, and one of my quote unquote friends, who was like a 6'9" black basketball player from DC who went to Dunbar, took Tamu and he wrapped her in string of a blind, and then he punched her a few times, and he thought it was funny. Very disturbing. And if you look at Tamu's hair, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's a synthetic, of course, but I don't remember how old I was, but I took a pressing comb. I took a hot comb to Tamu's head, and so as you can see, her little, you know, and I burned it, you know, but I wanted to straighten her hair because as it was, her hair wasn't okay. Now, this is the pathology we're talking about with black children. I didn't know it wasn't, I didn't know it was okay, but I didn't know that it wasn't okay. It's not like anyone had said, look at Tamu's nappy hair, it's no good. But because of the ever present images that I was getting, late 60s, early 70s, it was okay. And it's really sad. So I just wanted to share that story before I finished up with this historical part about the dolls. And just, we look at the shows that were out. I mean, how many people can remember and name some of these shows that were out back in the day? Even Tarzan had it good in Africa, right? I Dream of Jeannie, and oh, it was just fantastic. Andy Griffith. And they showed these images of stable families. Little House on the Prairie, I couldn't get enough of that. I Dream of Jeannie, oh, she was lovely and magical. And then came the late 80s and 90s. And you couldn't tell me anything. I'm seeing my peers. I'm pumped up. All the other black folks I know are pumped up. We had the Cosby Show, Different World, Living Single. And I'll never forget when I was in Rhode Island, there were several people who didn't believe that the Cosbys could be real. The fact that you could have a doctor and attorney in the same household, a black household, and that troubled me, because they didn't believe it because they didn't see it. So, my thing with images runs deep. When we think about the successes of African Americans in Hollywood, is winning the Oscars, and things are getting better. Hollywood is not so white, but it's still white. You look at some of the wins. 1939, Hattie McDaniel being the very first African American to win an Oscar, won it for her role I Can't Birth No Babies as a mammy. Whoopi Goldberg got an Oscar in 1990 in Ghost. Oh yeah, she was hilarious, but she's that good old black magic. Denzel Washington in Training Day, just a thug. I mean, he was brilliant in the role, but there are other things that I think that he should have gotten recognized for. Halle Berry in Monsters Ball. Who can forget that? Poor, struggling, abusive single mom who couldn't get past what the world was going to bring to her fat son. 2009, Monique wins for Precious. Again, a poor, mean, struggling, and abusive. So you have to ask yourself, these are the things that black people are getting awarded for in Hollywood, and it's continuing to perpetuate, whether it's being, hypersexuality, mammydom, just down out poor. These are, those are some very powerful things to say without saying them. So, I am going to pause here, and I'm going to, we will transition, and this is where you have your thoughts, you have your questions. I'm going to bring up our first guest, Jerry Santana Carter, who is the author of a fantastic, beautiful children's coloring and activity book. And I'm going to instead of just reading her bio, I'm going to let Jerry come on and share a little bit of her story. I mean, this is all about storytelling and about how she's helping us heal. So, Jerry, I'm going to bring you up.
Okay.
Okay.
And Monda, I had the Santana doll.
Did you?
I don't have it. My mom bought it for me when we were when I was little, and like literally that was like my main doll, Santana. I was carrying her around like she was I was the only child, well, kind of an only child, but in the house with my dad and mom, she was my friend. But thank you, Monda.
Congratulations on everything in your recent showing on Fox News. I know we can't really hear it too well, but I'll have it up in the back. Talk a little bit. I can do that.
Well, no, thank you. And a lot of, let me just say who I am first. My name is Jerry Santana Carter, and on February 25th, I published a book called Everything is Magical, Coloring and Activity Book. And it features fairies and unicorns, and they all have natural hair. So you have fairies with bantu knots, you have them with afro puffs, you have unicorns with locks and twist outs, and how I kind of came to that was back in 2019, my daughter came to me and she requested a fairy unicorn butterfly tea party. It was wild, but I was like, I'm gonna make it happen. And I did. And I just sat there as the little girls had on their fairy wings. And I noticed that they had different natural hairstyles, and I'm like, wow, like this is really interesting. And as she started getting more into unicorns, because unicorns is big money, you start noticing the images, which are everyone had flowy hair. The fairies seem to kind of all, look alike. And I have been very intentional with her on what images I wanted to share. And so when I started looking in the market, I didn't see anything that reflected her wide nose, her wide lips. And so I enlisted a wonderful illustrator who I met through a friend who is on Local Moms. And her name is Noni Grimes. And she was able to interpret everything that I wanted to see. And I'm super excited. But I was also intentional in not only the coloring book, but making sure when I did the stickers that they were specifically brown skin stickers, because my daughter is brown and I wanted her to see that. And I put together also a packet with multicultural crowns to make sure that kids of color can see exactly the brown that they are. And when I started to send out the book and the crowns and the packet out to families just to get the first feedback, I literally almost broke down crying when one mom emailed me and she said, my daughter came in, grabbed the book, looked at the crowns, looked up at her and said, finally, I have a brown that looks like me. And that I really wanted to break down, because I can say those images are super duper important. They process very, very quickly what they see on TV. And now you're not only fighting TV, you're fighting the internet, you're fighting what they see, with even the apps. I'm learning that apps is a whole nother realm that hopefully one day I can tackle. But I see now even that when she's playing on the apps, they all kind of look a certain way. And, they internalize that. I'll share one more story. Because specifically I've bought dolls that are all brown skin or dark skin. And so when the pandemic hit, we had to figure out some things quickly, and a couple families got together and we joined a pod. Now it's been very interesting watching 4 girls for 6 months. I need some wine on some days because they're like teenagers. But 2 girls are African-American and 2 girls were Caucasian. And Amari kept bringing her dolls in. And I noticed how one of the young ladies who was Caucasian would just pick up that black doll and play with it and say how beautiful it was. And I remember going down to Turkey Thicket and she's running down with her black doll, with the black doll in her hand, because she wanted to have it slide. And that's when you start to understand that if you introduce it to them and let them know that it's okay, that it's beautiful, that it's acceptable. And that's what I'm hoping with this book is, not to just target girls of color, but to target all kids. Because once you start to understand the puffy hair, the curly hair, the brown skin is beautiful, hopefully it can, they can internalize it and they don't have such a hard time as they begin to interact with other kids.
So, and Jerry, so it's a coloring book and it's an activity book.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
I want to hear more about those activities and why you thought it was important to add that to your to the book.
Also because sometimes you see the activities don't always look like the kids. Certain words are a little different, and I didn't want to say outwardly, you are beautiful, because I know you can have the affirmations. I wanted them to go through the activities and see stuff like kinky hair or black fairies rock. I wanted to be a little bit more subtle. And then, so we have math puzzles, we have mazes, we have a Sudoku, And one of the pictures in the Sudoku, the little girl has Afro puffs. And then I did 2 Mad Libs. And one was specifically about the Crown Act, because I want them to also understand that we give them, I think, a mixed message in a way. We got to be careful of saying, yes, your beautiful hair, the way it grows out your head is beautiful. But I don't think they really understand that there are actual laws out here that discriminate against people and how they naturally want to wear their hair. So I made a story up about fairies and the Crown Act as a way for young kids to start to at least engage in conversation with the parent about your natural hair and how, you know, you have to pass laws to wear your natural hair.
Awesome. And I just want to send greetings to Kenya. She is joining us from London. It is really late there. So Kenya, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And I wanted to, and Jerry, thank you. So does anyone, I just want to open it up for questions before we go to, oh yeah.
I keep forgetting to do this. I also did a playlist. So we're on Spotify and we're on Apple. And it's specifically, you know, as the kids of color, they're all, you know, very affirmational type of songs. Like Hey Black Child is the first one that I start off with. And I've been listening to that in the morning with my daughter, and now she recites it, you know. So I'm trying to use another way, because music is another tool that I think is important to add to, you know, showing children that they're beautiful. If they hear it and they hear positive songs, they can start to internalize it. So I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to add about the playlist.
So, and you have one for adults?
I have one for adults, yeah. And I have one for the kids, yep. And it's Everything is Magical is the everythingismagical.com is where the book is available online. We currently are selling it in stores at Sankofa bookstore in DC, if you want to support, you know, the local small businesses as well as Blue Now. And then if you want to hear the playlist, is Everything is Magical on Spotify and on Apple. And then for the adults, I think it's Everything is Magical too, or Everything Magical Adult. I think it's in parentheses. I can't remember off, but you should see it pop up.
Okay, and we can follow you, IG, Facebook.
Everything is Magical. I'm on IG and I'm on Facebook.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna open it up for questions, comments, observations.
Jerry, I think it's so amazing what you've done. And you mentioned that your book came out. Did you mean this year, February, or last year, February?
Oh, this year we just launched. February 25th was the day I kind of hit the button. I'm like, I can't wait anymore, and I went live. So, but it's been well received so far.
I'm so happy and so proud of what you've done. I can hardly wait to get the book, and I don't have little children anymore. I don't care.
Adults, I've enjoyed coloring it. I've heard from a couple of adults who said that they've been coloring in the pages as well. So,
I plan to. And have you seen, I guess they did a Crayola Colors of the World. They have Crayola crayons that are colors of the world. I'm going to give me my Crayola crayons, colors of the world. You have them over there?
It's a gift set. you get the book, and you get also these are the stickers that come along with it. And I also have this is the 8-pack of the color of the world. So it all comes together.
Oh, before this call is over, you can count on my order.
I appreciate it. I do. I appreciate it.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
You put it in the chat where people can purchase the book.
Oh, yes, I would definitely do that.
Thank you.
Oh, definitely. You definitely got some customers here. I'm sorry, Rhonda, I'll raise my hand. I'm multitasking here. I don't know if you can see my hand, but this is Spring. And yeah, we got a couple of orders, so kind of we have to make sure we don't double dip on the nieces.
Okay.
So, but I just, as you were speaking, I was wondering if I maybe overdid it. With my kids a little bit, with my girls, I had twin girls, and I refused to buy white dolls.
Mm-hmm.
When they were coming up. I had kind of had a little bit of for me, it was traumatizing. For my goddaughter, who's 10 years older than my girls, where it was nothing but Vanna White, and she thought black was ugly, and she would cry. She would cry if you gave her a black doll. She's almost 40 now, so that was, you know, and I think she's got a little girl now who's 5 years old. And I don't, you know, I know that she's been more exposed to more multiracial and everything like that. So she's one of the ones that'll be getting the book.
Okay.
That 5-year-old. But I just wonder if, like, for my girls, if I may have overdid it a little bit, because they got to the point where I think people would be playing with white dolls and they would start preaching.
They're like, I don't know about that doll.
why they didn't play with white dolls, and how black dolls were beautiful, and all this stuff like that. But anyway, they still laugh. They're 30 years old now. They still laugh about that because they tell people how they were basically not allowed. And at that time, I didn't realize it was that, you know, I wasn't really being that militant with it, but it's just that because, you know, they were hard to find.
I had a cousin who has been very supportive. She's in DCPS librarian, and she told me, which I didn't know, her mom was actually using a marker and coloring the dolls and then giving it to her. And she said she did not know that she was going to that extent to just make sure that, you know, they had a variety, because they don't, now you can find everything. You can find the ones with the afros, you can find some, you know, that are, you know, regular hair, curly hair. So I'm hoping I'm not going overboard. I don't think it is. I think that, so I have 2 children. I have a big age difference. I have a 19-year-old, and then I have my 5-year-old. And the reality is that I realized when she was born, the way he moved is going to be a little bit different than the way she moves, because he's lighter skinned, you know, his hair is different. I'm already noticing the nuances, even the nuances when he was a baby versus she was a baby. Oh, he was so cute. Here, oh, she's, you know, I can tell it. And I want to protect her so bad, you know, so bad, from feeling any internalization about what the world and what they're kind of giving you. I know it's a lot different and it's a lot better, but you still see it and you still feel it. And even now, I'm looking ahead as I'm thinking of school situations. You know, she's in a very diverse school. I know, like, later on, I had put him in a private school. I don't know if I want to do that with her yet, because I don't know if she could survive the dynamics sometimes with little girls. And I just feel like you know what's going on. I guess that's my point, and I just want to protect her. So I hope I'm not going overboard.
Not at all. Try having fraternal twin girls who people differentiated against, because one was well, they're both kind of like but one had the curly hair that you could just wet and go, the good hair, and the other one had what people consider bad hair. And can you imagine? And you can imagine at 5 years old trying to explain to them why they were getting the comments. They literally standing side by side, and people, and I call them ignorant people, and Lord forgive me, but they would just really walk up to the one with the good hair. It's like, oh, she's so cute, and start touching her hair. Oh, she's so cute. And her twin sister, 45 minutes older than her, is standing next to her, and they're ignoring.
Right.
And also, this is probably why the thing with the dolls and everything that I actually had to explain to them when they were little how that the people were wrong, how the adults were incorrect and they were wrong. They didn't know any better. Basically explaining to them what ignorance was. Right. And that, you know, but of course it's still got some internalized because they heard it all the time. The other one had totally coarse, thick hair and was always kind of stocky, whereas the other one was little and petite with this, what they call good hair. And I had to explain to them that there was no such thing as good hair. Right. And, you know, which is crazy because they're 45 minutes apart. So, okay, I'm done.
Spring, I wanted to touch on something that you said, and my brother Sunjata Salam might want to jump in here with this. You said, you know, raising the twins, the girls, I hope I didn't do too much. You know, I hope I didn't make them like too much of a revolutionary. And it made me think, what's too much? Like, how do we put how do we quantify that? What's too much? Is there too much white images that we get from the time we're born to the time we die? We don't say that.
That's true.
And it's, and it's those just subtle nuances that is just that's built, it's baked into not only our DNA but the DNA of this country. You know, so I just think that we have to be extra careful about what we say and what we do, because these kids they're like sponges. You know,
Yeah.
we're heroes. They're watching us.
Mhm.
So, and I'm thankful that there's so many, there's so many black shows on television now. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if I even want to watch this one, but the fact that there's a choice and that there's a difference in genre, it's not just thugging and drugging. I'm very happy for that, from the entertainment perspective. So, but yeah,
You're right. Thank you for that, Monda. And I will say the one daughter with thick coarse hair and the always kind of stocky, she is an advocate for body positivity and natural hair. And she actually has a podcast. Her and a friend of hers, they have a podcast on YouTube that they started a few months ago. But even before that, before she even went to college, she always said this was something that she was going to talk about and mentor young girls in and stuff, in terms of having a positive body image and that. So I'd like to think that her mom that didn't do too much had something to do with that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Sunjata, did you want to say something? Because I know this is something that is a soapbox for you, brother.
Not really, and I don't want to impose in any way. Especially, I have a son, right? Like I don't have a daughter, and I would not in any way begin to think that I could speak for mothers who have daughters who they are trying to deal with the situation. So anything I say has to be in respect of that, first and foremost, right? Like I'm not in that space, even though I understand it. I mean, I'm just thinking of the language, right, that is being used as well, and the difficulty of this. So I immediately thought, well, two things. One, about people of color, or when we say color, and even that language implies that there was an original thing that was not colored, and then we came and got to be colored, right? Which is opposite of the reality. We are the original people. The idea of even the term coarse hair, coarse means hard, rough, and in some cases it means inferior. The majority of people on the planet have what we call coarse hair. That is the normal hair. But that just shows how this society, especially in the Western society, and just white supremacy culture in general around the world, has done such an intense job of ensuring that a group of people despise themselves in the most subtle of ways, to the point where we don't even know that we're acting in the norms of that. And I'm going to use an intense word or extreme word, in the norms of that hatred. We don't even know we're in there until it's there. My son today was going to school, and they had crazy hair day. And and I'm like, nope. Like, and he yesterday, he didn't have his hair braided. He had his afro, right? And I'm having to watch when he gets his hair braided back to afro. Sometimes he'll say about his afro, I don't like this. I like my hair braided. And so because of our, with everything that goes on with us, I'm like, is he saying he doesn't like his afro? Is he saying he doesn't like his hair? And my son is a lighter complexion, and he has the curly, what people like in terms of the curly hair. But I'm still worried. Like, what's happening here? And I think with him, it's just he just wants to braid it, and so he's saying whatever he can get to get it braided, like Kawhi Leonard, right? That's what he's saying. But when this hair day thing came up, crazy hair day, I'm like, here we go again. And they think they're doing something fun, but I'm like, my child can't do crazy hair day, because I don't want him to think anything about his hair as being crazy. And so, yeah, I'm just listening to everyone and appreciating the struggle. And when I say appreciating, like, man, the things that we're having to go through. And like when Spring said, did I do too much? Like, even that question, man, that just hit my heart. Like, a mother who's trying her best in a world that makes her daughter feel inequitable. And she has a twin who's getting different treatment, and then the mom is saying, am I doing too much? I'm like, nah, man, you did everything you're supposed to do. And even if it went what considered the wrong way, you were loving, you tried everything. So I'm just honored to hear that and hope that I can be a good parent too when my child is no longer 4 years old.
Well, I think you're doing the right thing. Like I said before, with my son, he will be considered, a very, light skinned. He's 6'5". Now he's tall, he's everything, but I have been very intentional from the very beginning when people would come up and try to touch his hair or say he had good hair, to say, when we walked away, I'm like, no, there's no such thing as good hair. It's about what's in your mind. I was very, very intentional in just trying to keep him level-headed, because I know what society thought about him. And I didn't want him to fall into that whole I'll be short trap. I'm dating myself there, that it's about who you are inside and what you bring to the table in society, not what you look like. So I think you're doing a great job. You're doing the right thing with your son already.
Oh yeah, I was deep in the sunken place for Christopher Williams. Remember, mother. I mean, that was
true. It was true
stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, yes, ma'am.
Me, Mother? Yeah. Oh, I was, giving a presentation recently to a group of Caucasians, talking about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And one of the things that we talked about was the diversity of hair. And I said to them, imagine if you were told you're not allowed to wear your natural hair to work. You're not allowed to wear straight hair. It can't just be straight. You can't wear your natural curl. If your hair is too thin and too straight, that is considered disrespectful in the workplace. And just imagining, imagine if somebody said you can't wear your natural hair to work. And so, that is what Black women for years have had to deal with. If we want to wear our natural hair, it's not considered professional. It's not considered, neat and clean and appropriate. And imagine if those tables were turned and the only thing that was considered appropriate was coarse hair, because the majority of the world has coarse hair. Your hair has to be coarse. It has to be a little bit kinky. It's got to be a little bit curly. It's got to be a little bit fluffy. If it's not that way, if it's straight, I'm sorry, you can't come to work like that. We don't consider that hair appropriate. You can't work that way. And when I said that, you could see people were thinking, well, that's not right. Yeah, it's not. It's not right. So I love it. I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing, Jerry. I love it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I do. It's been a labor of love.
Okay. Any other questions? And Vernon, I'm going to call you, but I want to make sure we get our other speaker in, because I really want you to share what you're doing with your nonprofit with everyone. Okay. And welcome to the Healing Chronicles.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So Miss Alice, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
We're going to hear from this lady, man. She is phenomenal. And she has, Alice, you have like an amazing biography, but I'm not going to read it. I'm going to let you talk to us, just like as if you were walking into a room and introducing yourself, so we can get to know you a little bit and understand what makes you tick and what drives you. And not only the books you've written, but the types of programs that you've done to help increase equality and diversity worldwide. So with Lego, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. And I thank you for being here with us. Alice Finch, everyone.
Thank you. My path to working with Lego as a medium for talking about equity and social justice issues is a little bit convoluted. So I'm going to try and smash it into as few words as possible. It really started in 2012 when I built my first Lego model as an adult, and that was Hogwarts Castle. And I had just started building again with my young sons, and I showed Hogwarts at a Lego convention, which happened periodically across the US and throughout the world. And my experience there was very different than I expected. I was new to the hobby, And the response was essentially, oh, you're a woman. You couldn't possibly have done this yourself. Where are the men that helped you? And it took me down a path of viewing the Lego hobby, the adult Lego hobby, very differently than I was expecting, and the sexism of that world. And it led me to start a group called the Women's Brick Initiative, which is essentially a support group for women who are entering the hobby or who are in the hobby who experience this same kind of sexism. And there's a tremendous need for supporting women across the world who are wanting to be creative and build with Lego. And as part of that, the WBI, Women's Brick Initiative, we have had the opportunity to do a lot of research, specifically dealing with parts and the people, minifigs, that Lego makes. Because as it turns out, Lego as a company, it's based in Denmark, has a fairly sketchy past in terms of how it has approached women, female minifigs, but also minifigs of color. And we spent a lot of time this last summer, actually, doing a lot of research into the data of how minifigs are represented. And as it turns out, it's really disproportionately favoring white people. And Lego minifigs, I should have some sitting around here, just so I can show you. The most Lego minifigs, oh, here, like this, are yellow. And the only minifigs that are not yellow are ones that are connected with an IP of some kind. So Marvel or Star Wars or Harry Potter, anything that has a IP contract, those minifigs are in skin colors, as opposed to a system Lego, which is all in the yellow color. And this became particularly important to me because I realized how serious and dramatic the disparity is. For example, I think it's 48% of all Lego minifig heads, so just the head itself, are done in yellow. 41% of all Lego minifig heads ever made are in the very lightest color of flesh tone. It's called light nougat. And that is 89% of all Lego minifigs essentially are coded as white. And the very small percentage left is distributed across several shades of skin tone that are darker than the white coded light nougat color. And this, along with other research that we did about the over-sexualization of female torso prints and other kinds of research, it really became apparent that my focus was on the need to encourage Lego to switch away from this yellow standard. And so I started with the WBI. We wrote a petition that people can sign asking Lego to stop producing yellow as the standard minifig color, based on this understanding that yellow is coded as white. Yellow is, it is a way of continuing the bias of white people being the standard. This plays out, we've talked a lot about hair. Well, Lego minifigure hair is an excellent example of that. The number of types of hair that is coded as being ethnic in some way, whether that's Asian or Polynesian or Black or African, there aren't very many of them, and often they're done in a disrespectful way. So for example, the only example of dreadlocks is from Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's not done in a respectful cultural way. So my attention has been in trying to encourage people to understand the need for, sort of acknowledge that this is a problem. A lot of white people don't understand this because I grew up with Lego and it was just fine when I was a kid. But white people, like emojis, accept and tolerate yellow as being an acceptable color, whereas people of color tend not to feel comfortable with it. So we have spent a lot of time in promoting this idea that Lego needs to actually be for everybody. Lego has a motto that Lego is for everybody, but I believe personally that they demonstrate otherwise with the lack of acknowledgement of yellow being a damaging thing. So for example, Mandi, you mentioned, or maybe it was, and Jerry, you mentioned that your daughter likes to play with Lego, but it's a different kind of Lego than 10 or 20 years ago. And specifically the Friends line, all of the characters in Friends are natural skin tones. And that is significant because Friends has gotten a lot of heat for being problematic in other ways, but Lego has acknowledged the need for those mini dolls to more accurately represent the girls that play with them. And so for half of their, right, for Friends to be in natural skin tones, but the others to be in yellow is a bit of a contradiction for me. So I spent time trying to educate Lego on the necessity of this. Other than this focus on yellow, though, I used to be a teacher in middle school, and so I've worked with the art teacher at my local middle school to do some intense building with the students to use Lego as a way to process equity, bias, racism, and even climate change. And we've made these mosaic posters, one of them was on the previous picture, as a way of processing inequity and injustice. We did a diverse superheroes project, and the kids had to incorporate some aspect of their own cultural heritage in this collective project. And as part of that, they had to build these posters. And as it turned out, they had choices of several different Lego colors for the skin tone. And when they started building it, it was obvious that most of the groups had chosen the lightest skin tone. And so that provided an opportunity to talk with all of these 7th and 8th graders about why that happened. How is it that even though there's a fair amount of diversity in this class, and we're talking about diversity and cultural heritage and inclusion, how come everybody ended up with the palest color of skin? And so as part of that conversation, we were then able to talk about bias and how that had played a part in this. And in the end, they mostly ended up with skin colors that were not essentially white. There we go. But it necessitated that process of using Lego to actually build this to come to that understanding of you have a choice here, and based on the purpose of this project, we need to be more inclusive than just I am white, so therefore my diverse superhero should be white also. And it was a really fabulous opportunity to have that kind of discussion. So yes, thank you for showing these. These were the posters that we came up with.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And you just take the time and look at the stories behind them are even, more compelling.
It was an important part of it, having the students all be able to articulate what this meant to them. And I think it was sort of the tying of the knot of the end of the reflection that's really important. And the statements here all include words from all of the 6 students who contributed to any particular poster.
Nice. Now, did you address any of this in the documentary that you were in, Alice? The Lego Brickumentary or something like that? Tell us about that. And even with your book.
Yes. So the Brickumentary was from 2014, and I really hadn't started much of this work yet. I was still doing a lot of personal building, meaning I was building a lot of stuff. Most of the equity work that I've been doing recently has been somewhat prompted by the fact that I can't build as much myself. I have some nerve issues in my hands that makes it more painful to build. And so I sort of shifted my focus from me building personally, although there's other projects that my family members are working on. But my energy has shifted to enabling others to build and to doing the work this equity anti-racist work in my community. So most of this has happened in the last few years. So what is mentioned in the Lego documentary is my work with encouraging girls and women to build and in the Lego community, and that has been ongoing and significant. I have also written a book about Lego. I tend to focus on architecture, and this is an idea book with thousands of ideas of how to build particular architectural features in Lego. But now almost all of my time is spent either in schools or on Zoom like everybody else, but working on anti-racist efforts, including volunteering at my local juvenile jail in order to bring something that I can do to the kids who are there. After reading Just Mercy, I was really compelled by the injustice of the system, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't help in that aspect, but I can hopefully bring brief moments of joy and happiness and creativity to that environment, because that's something that I can do. So I am fully vaccinated now, and so as soon as we've got the schedule worked out, I can actually go to this jail and start working on sort of bringing that component of the Lego world to something other than my own building.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming and sharing. And please put in the chat where people can get your book, if they can support you directly, or, I mean, I know Amazon, as an author, Amazon charges 55%, just so you all know, you know, so it's always better to order from the author direct if you can, or, you know, the wholesaler, support your local bookstores.
Right.
So thank you for that, Alice. So does anyone, and I know there are some questions, probably some burning ones. Does anyone have any questions in particular for Alice? Or you just want to open up the discussion as to talk about this whole image and perception thing and what we can continue to do to heal our world? And Rhonda, if you want to share anything in the chat, please do, dear.
Alice, I do have one question. So with my daughter, I particularly have sought out Andrella and the Lego Friends genre, I guess, for the girls, because I know it's a whole thing with just having Lego for girls. Is Andrella going to have other friends that look like her? Because it just seems like she's the only, you know, the only brown skinned friend of the whole Lego Friends series.
It is a really good question. I don't know a specific answer to it, but one of the things that we've been paying attention to is how the different friends are represented. So for example, each friend now has their own house that is a set, but not all houses are created equal. And as it turns out, I believe Andrea is the only one that has come in another friend's house. Mm-hmm. So for example, I don't remember which one it was, the blonde haired, blue eyed girl's house. And then Andrea comes in that set also. Mm-hmm. So they're still struggling with equal representation of each of the friends. What I don't know is the potential for having other characters, I guess you could say, in the same skin color. I would really hope so. The Friends line is one of the lines where there are more female designers actively participating in the design of the sets. Okay. Lego designers are still mostly male, but Friends line happens to have more female designers than many other themes. And it also happens that women tend to be more aware of the need for connections, right? So Andrea has a friend. I actually will mention this to Lego. So I have a dialogue with Lego directly, sort of like the VP level people in the company. And I will mention that as something that has come up is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? Because I think it's a really good point that progress means not just having one character in a particular color, but having the possibility for relationships and connections. And how about a brother or a sister or a teacher or anything in that same collection? So I will write a note, and I actually have a meeting scheduled with them in a couple weeks. So who knows if it will get mentioned.
Buy it if they put it out there.
That's right, exactly.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, yes, Miss Margaret, absolutely.
Well, yeah, because it's been such an interesting conversation. And I was thinking that such simple topics, the color of the skin, the color of the eyes, the texture of the hair, and yet those elements causes us to be in a position where we are today. Black skin, get back. And what's that old saying from years ago? If you're black, get back. If you're white, you're all right.
That's right.
And because of that, we don't think about what's inside a person's head. We don't think about the intellect that's there. We don't think about the moral codes that's inside us. It's always, is your hair kinky? Is your hair straight? Are you black? Are you white? Are you light skinned? These are those elements of what have brought us to today's world, where Black people and brown people and people who don't have the blue eyes and the straight hair are always relegated to the end of the line. But I see changes are coming. You ladies today who presented are bringing out to the forefront those issues which need to be discussed openly and freely, so that you teach our young children what it is to be a human being, not because of the color of their skin or the texture of the hair, but because of who they are. They're lovely just as they are. Which brings me to another point. The Capitol was mobbed January 6th. Those are the people who really believe that their eye color, their skin color, and because they're white, they rule the world. Let's bring America back to what it should be. And what it should be for them is what it has always been for them. I can't thank you enough for letting your young boys and girls know that they are precious just as they are. And the more they see themselves in books, and the more they see themselves in movies, the more they realize that they are somebody. This morning I was reading the Post, and I clicked this because it means what we're talking about today. It says, for Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, fostering leaders is part of the agenda. And on the front page are pictures of all of these Black women of power. Our young children are going to see that. They will know that they too can be this cream of the crop, because they already are the cream of the crop, but now they see it in action. I always think about Ruby Bridges, that little 6-year-old girl, how she must have felt at that school all by herself with only one white teacher brave enough to say, I will teach her. And I often think about all of those other white adult teachers in that building. Who were they? Why did they do what they did? How could they have done what they did to that young girl? It starts with what they weren't necessarily taught. They saw it all of their lives. And as Mondo brought out the pictures, Haley Berry, when she won the award, Denzel Washington, why he won the award. It also featured us in our worst possible situations. And that's not who we are. I think about men, Donald Trump, say, he could live next door to anybody and nobody would think that is any problem. My husband could not. He's Black. That's automatically a problem. They would rather sit next to a Bundy or a Trump than somebody with integrity. And why? All back to what we talked about today, the color of one's skin, which translates also to the bluest eye, which
Mhm.
also translates to the long string blonde hair. And we get away from this simply by doing what you two young ladies are doing, writing and telling it like it is. And I have just smiled the entire program because I'm so proud of what you are doing and who you are, and continue the good work.
Thank you, Miss Margaret. And speaking of building and architecture, Vernon, can you come and share with us a little bit about your organization and what you're doing to help build confidence and legacies for our young people out here?
Absolutely. So,
Mhm.
so thank you for those words too, Ms. Morrison, and the presentation. Ms. Finch, is just incredible work. And to echo that, that's really our passion in our work. So I'm the executive director of a program out of Chicago called Project Osmosis. So it's a design education initiative. And it's basically like a bookmobile for design. We go to places where resources and things are lacking. I don't like the word underserved communities. It's a place that may be not having the resources or a computer or equipment that other places may have. So we view design as a problem-solving tool. One of our mandates is the world is designed by design. So we recognize that things that our young people are faced, even when it comes to racial injustice and all these things, is by design. And we use design in a 360 format. We do several programs. One, it's called a Design Explorers program, where individuals, young men, we focus on young men and young women in South Side, West Side of Chicago, where we do things like rebranding oneself, because if you don't brand yourself, this world will. And so with our young men and young women, chivalry is not dead among us. When we work with our young people and with the young men, we tell them, look, these are your sisters, your protectors. You know, you've been told that you don't have these capabilities. That's not true. And what we do is we use, again, design as a problem-solving tool. We've done murals in the city of Chicago. We've created design projects. I'm a designer by trade. My mother raised me to be a designer. She wanted to be a designer. In the 50s, that was unheard of for a woman of color to want to be a designer. So I was put on this path as an infant. And Project Osmosis is a result of me telling my mom, thank you. I told her that when I become a famous designer, I was going to buy her mansion and dogs and all that. She said, no, baby, you know, you pay it forward. When you see a young person with that creative gleam in their eyes like you, then pay it forward. So the success of our programs, I'll put it in the chat. It's projectosmosis.org. We've worked with hundreds of young people. We've been doing this 20 years now. And we have hundreds of people of color that are in the field of creativity. We work in all the industries: fashion, graphic, industrial, interior, game programming, all of the, and I'm truly proud because many of those youngsters and that are professionals now are out of the South and West sides of Chicago, where they say it's unproductive and unfruitful. So we are living proof of that. I'll just show you these. I'm going to be sending you guys copies of these books. This is one book. It's my mentor, Leroy Wimbush. He was the first designer of color to have a firm in Chicago. And he actually gave me his memoirs. It was a 10-year labor of love, but we finally completed this book. And I'll be sending that to you guys on the call, as well as this one, who's my other mentor, Charles Harrison, who's an industrial designer of color. He designed the Viewmaster, most of the Sears Roebuck pieces and things that you use and work with today. He even designed the plastic garbage cans on wheels. You'd still be, you know, dragging your steel cans out to the garage if it wasn't, you know, to the parkway if it wasn't for him. So that's kind of my quick elevator. We have programs in Chicago. We do Express Yourself portrait programs. We do design education initiatives. Osmosis is a scientific term. It means fluids going from one end of the spectrum seamlessly. We add the word creative to that. So we also educate parents as well as young people in the next generation by using creative starter kits so they can design their own world and not have it enforced on them with the world the way it is today. So we believe that they are the change. They are the initiative. So thanks for having me on the call. I know that was quick, but you know.
Thank you, Vernon. Much appreciated. And I know, like I said earlier, we're going to make sure we get out before 9 o'clock in case anyone wants to see the president speak after, with regard to his first 100 days. So, I mean, and I also sense there could be a collab. I mean, between and Jerry, Alice can make like little Lego scenes from Everything is Magical, and Vernon and Alice can work together. I mean, it's crazy, like what I'm seeing right here, right now. So make sure, if you all are okay with me sharing, I'll make sure that I share your email information as well, because, not only do we share stories and try to heal, we also collaborate, because that's what community and uplifting community is all about. So what else do we have? Who's going to chat next? Anyone triggered?
Well, I have a question for Vernon. If he gets his students from high schools or colleges for his program, or is it just open?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So, and I wish I could show the site, but yeah,
what's
okay.
the put it in
projectosmosis.org.
Okay. I'll go while you were talking to Miss Margaret.
Okay, so yes, and yes. Our young people come from some by referral, some by we go to the local libraries here in the city, and many of the librarians serve as our allies because we go to people young,
Okay, well, Vernon froze.
Yeah.
Shares.
Well, that's too bad.
This is he'll be back. This is the website, projectosmosis.org. Look at that baby. There he is. He's going again.
You guys hear me?
Welcome back, Vernon.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
I was just like, okay, let me, yeah.
So, well, this answers the question more than any. So we get them from various parents. We have programs that we actually go out to the high schools. We do a design youth forum in Chicago where we have the public schools come out. I'm a professor. I lecture at UIC on design inclusion. And
what's UIC?
University of Illinois Chicago School of Design.
Okay.
And what we do is we get their campus. I get their campus during spring break, and so we have several hundred youngsters from the Chicago area that come out to the programs, and they get to pick a discipline. They work with a professional, and we literally will have. This is one of our slogans too. We all have the human right to be creative. And what we do is we recruit from libraries, from the local schools. We have a high school design competition. We also have parents that come to us and say, I got this creative kid, I don't know what to do with them. We say, send them to us. And then it's by referral of a lot of kids. We also work with the incarceration system in places like that in Chicago where they view young people as a waste. And we actually put these programs through our creative starter kits. You see our Brick Builders Nation, which is kind of Lego similar. So, it's a lot of it's word of mouth, but a lot of it is by just personal one-on-one contact.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we start from 9 to 90, as we say. Osmosis.
That was my question, was the age group that you target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our primary age group is usually at the grade school, high school level, but then once they are on this creative path, we don't want them to just do one program and that's it. So we have mentors and mentoring programs that help nurture them from that stage all the way to the professional level.
I'd like to reach out to you too, Vernon, about a potential collaboration that I think will be right up your alley. So I'll send you, I'll put in the chat my email address so that you know, and I'll ask Monda for yours, and when you see mine, you'll know it's me.
Okay, perfect. And I'll
Yeah.
put it in the chat too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask Alice. Alice, I didn't hear where you were based.
I'm in Seattle.
In Seattle, okay.
In a normal year, when we actually get to leave the house, I do a fair amount of traveling because I think it's really important to reach communities other than my own. And so I've been to Hong Kong and Japan and Italy, Czech Republic, working with other groups supporting people in the hobby. That's sort of the Lego side of things. So going other places and meeting other communities is, I think, an important thing to do. You have to get outside your comfort zone and your own neighborhood, your own street, in order to be able to acknowledge people other than your bubble, right? I live on an island too, so I think it's really important to get off my island and go see the world.
I have a friend whose family lives in an island, off an island of Seattle, so I wonder if it's the same one. I can't remember what it's called. So, but I have a friend whose father lives, they take a ferry. After they fly into Seattle, they take a ferry. But let me ask you this, with all of the things that, the companies that jumped on board with Black Lives Matter and all of that, especially after the George Floyd murder last year, did you find that Lego then started coming to you saying, what else do you think we should do? Like, did that open up a dialogue differently than what you'd seen in the past?
I would say yes. I would say yes. So most of this is done through the Women's Brick Initiative, partly because we have a really strong relationship with people at Lego who are interested and willing to hear what we have to say. And on sort of another layer to that is I started another group called the Brick Alliance. And the Brick Alliance is connecting all of the sort of marginalized community. Those are people of color, those are LGBTQ, that's handicapped people who use Lego. There's a group called Lego Saved My Life. So all of these smaller communities, we are gaining a voice also as a way of communicating directly with Lego. But right now it's mainly through the WBI, and it's about being able to communicate this directly to them and then being willing to listen. And it's a constant conversation. For example, I was on a Zoom call with them a couple weeks ago on a project that they're working on. I can't say what it is, but I can tell you that I mentioned again the importance of having more skin tones available in their minifigs. And it's the constant reminder that this is important. That is one of the most important things I can do, is making sure they don't forget that this is still something that needs being addressed, and that it is all the more important since George Floyd. Lego as a company made a statement in support of, and I think in particular after George Floyd. And so I'm trying to keep them aware of the fact that there's the work that has to come after that statement, not just the, we're with the BLM community. It's now let's see some walk and not just some talk.
Awesome, thank you. Connor, you good? Okay, and Kenya, I know it's late in London. I don't know if you wanted to add a perspective from being across the pond. I know there was a great migration from Africa to the UK, and any number of things that you may have experienced. I'm not sure she's still on. So I know it's late, so we won't fuss about you not coming on camera, but if you want to speak up, we're happy to hear from you. Okay. So Rhonda, while Kenya's deciding whether she wants to come up, is there anything in the chat? Oh, Ross, I think you had something you wanted to share.
Yes. I worked on a screenplay.
Yep.
Let's see if we can see some of it, called Streamline. It's about the creative spirit, and Raymond Loewy, who Vernon will certainly know who that is. I worked with his daughter on a film that's in a museum on Raymond Loewy. Yep, there's that's certainly part of his many, many, many things. So Vernon, you know who he is.
Oh yeah,
Obviously.
absolutely.
And I also met Tom Kellogg, who is another industrial designer who did work for Raymond Loewy. And he was the rendering artist for the Avanti, which is still an interesting car. If you see one, you want to check it out. They wrote up this and put this in a magazine, the Avanti magazine, and did a nice article and tried to help me get the film made. It came close. The producers ended up making a film about dragons. They figured, well, people know about dragons. They don't remember Raymond Loewy, who had been on the cover of Time, who at one point, they would make sure his name was in the ad of whatever the product was to give it, weight. But, times change, people forget, and you move on to new things. We did start on a new screenplay today having to do with the clipper ship era. And that one, the designer was Donald McKay. I have his daguerreotype downstairs because my great-great-great-great-grandfather was a clipper ship captain. And the story is going to have a lot of things going on. We're going to try to do it from the point of view of his daughter, who he took with him to China, and they also lived in India. She started feeling unwell, and so she was put on the Flying Cloud, which is the most famous clipper ship, and was sent back to the United States to make sure she was okay. But there's a lot in this film. I can't really reveal much yet, but there's lots of action because it was an action time. There was a mutiny, among other things. So it's got a lot of tooth in this story. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that whenever I hear the word designer, I perk up because it's a great thing. You can see in the background, I have industrial design. So the Hasselblad used to be my Hasselblad until they broke into my studio and stole it. But those are all silk screens by Ann Ladden, who was at the torpedo factory. Now she moved out west, but I have several of hers. And the Nikon was not my Nikon, but it was the last of the silk screens before they went to lithos. So anyway, any questions?
Amazing. You've
been busy.
Oh yeah, if we get a chance to chat, I can send you all kinds of things. Manda was kind enough to have us on where Margaret and Cheryl Krim discussed the film we did, Resisterhood, which I'm sure you would enjoy. And I don't know if Margaret, if you got this, but I have this. It's my grandmother's poetry book.
But you mentioned you had that, yes.
Okay, and I'm going to scan some pages for you and get you all motivated. And before she did her book, she had parts of it published other places. So think about that. People that want to hear what you have to say. Here, look at me, just calling you out. Only because I'm a friend. People would like to hear it. So yeah, that's, you get your voices out there. Or if you're a designer like Vernon, you have your voice done in another 3D way, perhaps. Vernon, what's your favorite design you've done?
My favorite design, wow. So I would say I designed the Marcus Garvey Museum in Kingston, Jamaica. So at my design firm, Art on the Loose, we call ourselves Art on the Loose Creative Therapists. And so we do exhibit work. So I would say it's two projects, that one and then the Bronzeville Children's Museum, which is the only African-American children's museum in the country. That's here in Chicago off Stony Island. So those are my two favorite projects.
So how did you bend the arms to get it made?
There was a lot of bending. That would be an hour, hour conversation. So
is this on your website?
It is, both projects. So go to artontheloose.com. I'll put that in the.
Okay, awesome.
That's the other arm. I'll put that in there too.
Vernon, what was the name of the museum on Stony Island?
The Bronzeville Children's Museum.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll put these in the chat.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to seeing that.
Thank you, Vernon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
And I'm gonna.
And Manda, can I give a shout out to you? You are just wonderful. Thank you so much for having all of these wonderful people present tonight. I appreciate you and appreciate what they said.
Thank you, Miss Margaret. Thank you, Spring. Okay, we got a quiet bunch tonight.
I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just so looking forward to catching up with and talking to everybody. You know, it's a great call.
Okay, so we have, it's about 8:45, and I want to thank everyone for coming and sharing. Nia, thank you. I don't see you, sweetheart, but I'm glad you're here. Nia Chin is the designer of, speaking of design, the video that I showed before every Healing Chronicles officially begins to kick it off. She was the one that put that together, and it's just so powerful, such a powerful piece. So Nia, thank you for that. Prashant, thank you always for your support. Rhonda, you know you're the bomb.com. I appreciate you as host. And Kenya, thank you so much for joining us from across the pond. I appreciate it. And Alice and Jerry and Margaret, I just love all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you do in order for us to be better human beings and to raise our children in a better world. So if there are no other comments or observations, I will go ahead and close us out and give us an opportunity to get some tea or something and get ready for the speech. Anyone? Going once? Going twice?
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Photo. Group photo.
Oh, group photo? Okay, you gonna take, Rhonda, you taking it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, I got it. I had to put my phone on airplane mode.
Yeah.
Go bananas. All right, there we go.
Can we do the whole, how do we do, should I do the group one so you see gallery view? Okay, I think that. Okay, you can unmute your stop video so we could see your photos, your visuals.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're still in share mode.
All right, let me just.
Okay, there it is, May 26th. Thank you.
So yeah, next, our next Healing Chronicles will be next month. June is, June, everything really kicks off in the housing industry. So we're going to talk about fair housing, which is actually Fair Housing Month, is the month of April, but we're going to talk a little more about it next month. And that's it. Okay. All right, Rhonda, so I'm ready.
Who's doing, oh, yes.
Thank you all. All right, we appreciate you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vernon.
Rhonda, this was great.
Thank you. I want to see some collabs going on now. Buying Jerry's book, Alice's book.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You get a book.
Great.
Vernon, I've got some ideas, so I'll be in touch with you. I really
Absolutely.
would love
Yes.
to do some work with you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Ross, I will be in contact with you. Thank you, and Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay.
Night.
That was good.
Thank you.